Okay, YouTube. Well, today I'm gonna read two Aboriginal Australian mythologies because I've not read them before, so this will be my first time. Yeah, so you're getting my hot take first reaction. This one's called the Iguana Men. Sibling pairs, both animal and human, played a great role in the mythology of the Dreamtime. Kurukadi and Mumba. The Iguana Men were merely one example of a common mythic type found in Aboriginal tales from across the Australian continent. One strand of Aboriginal myth told of the brothers, Yuri and Wangel, who ended up ascending into the night sky as the twin stars known in the west as Castor and Pollux. Another concerned the Mulitaji Law dogs, two dingoes who traveled south across the continent, digging water holes and spreading knowledge of the fundamental laws of nature on the way. Now, of course, in Greek culture, Castor and Pollux are two brothers. One was like a demigod, and the other was just a regular human called Castor and Pollux. So, the prevalence of siblings in myth may in part reflect the Aboriginal habit of using the terms brother and sister to cover most close relatives of the same generation. Yet it also highlighted a recurring dualism in traditional thought. So Kurukadi and Mumba were not just brothers, but also had twin identities, part human and part lizard. The stories told how they traveled southeast from the Kimberley region, naming plants and creatures and fashioning the landscape across much of the western desert. They hurled their magic boomerang as they went. As it soared across the wastes, the land took on form and definition beneath its flight. The Iguana Men's journey is thought not to have ended until they had crossed the continent, their travels having taken them across the lands of many peoples. As so often happens in Aboriginal culture, each tribe knows its own section of the songline and remains more or less in ignorance of the rest. To the outside observer, it is clear, however, that the myth of the Iguana Men is one of those tales that spans all Australia, bringing its various peoples together in an unwitting cultural union. And I guess the one picture they have, this book said it was the illustrated folklore and mythology, but there's very scant pictures. It's only a few. So I guess this is the old, what the Aboriginal drawing would be. Okay, that one's just about siblings. And, the other story I want to share today is also Aboriginal Australian, but, okay, so this one's called The First Tasmanians. The making of men and women has no part in most Aboriginal traditions. So close were the Aborigines to nature that they were able to see themselves as just another part of the landscape. One of the few accounts of the origins of humankind comes from Tasmania. Long ago, the two brightest stars in the firmament were Moni and Dromardiner. Rivals for supreme mastery of the sky, who resolved to fight it out after epochs of tension and bickering. The other stars looked on helplessly until the duel was over. Moni was defeated and cast out of the heavenly realm. Drummer stormed across the sky on his victory trail. As his rival fell forlornly to earth, he came to rest off the southern Tasmanian coast, and can still be seen, a large boulder in the sea at Sandy Bay. Before he died, however, Mooney bestowed a great gift on his earthly home, creating the first Tasmanians to occupy its empty spaces. In his haste, however, he gave them tails like kangaroos. Worse still, he neglected to give them jointed knees. They had to spend their whole lives standing up, quite unable to lie or hunker down. Soon they cried to the heavens to take pity on their plight. Drummer finally heard their call. Ruthless though he was moved by what he saw. Descending from heaven, he chopped off their tails and rubbed healing grease upon the wounds. Then to the middle of each leg he had a hinge-like knee. The people were now free to squat or lie down as they wanted. And here's the one picture they include, which I'm sure you'd also find on the hieroglyphs of Australia. I mean, when we were in Australia, we did see a few drawings in the ground, but they were pretty simple, like stick figures, pretty much. Mostly stick figures and a rainbow or the sun. And okay, so that's one more story, and yeah, I wanted to focus on Aboriginal Australian stuff today because, I mean, you don't really think of Australia, the indigenous people there, that much, because you think Australia is such a continent where so much of it is just desert that you barely think of people living there. It's like, yeah, it's almost all arid desert with absolutely no, it's difficult to live in the desert, because people do it. There's the Kalahari men of southern Africa. Okay, I wanted to share one more story now. This one's also from the southern world. It's called The Thrush and the Flood. Floods have always been a recurrent danger in Australia, a predominantly dry land in which periods of drought are often broken by brief outbursts of torrential rain. Myth provided a variety of explanations for the phenomenon, most of them involving Dreamtime creatures. Some myths spoke of a great Dreamtime flood that swept away the original creation. Different stories were told to explain its onset. According to one version, the Wandjini weather spirits sent it as retribution after a group of children captured and tortured an owl, a bird that was sacred to the spirits. Other folktales had a more limited resonance. One told by the Gunai people from the Gippsland region of Victoria blamed a local deluge on Chidalik, the frog, who once became feverish and drank so much that he emptied all the watercourses in the world. The other creatures were at a loss as to how to make him disgorge the water, until someone persuaded Noyang, the eel, to dance on his tail. The spectacle was so droll, that Chidalik burst out laughing. As he did so, water gushed from his mouth, causing a flood in which many creatures drowned. Another story from Victoria blamed Kaboka the thrush for the first flooding of the Tambo River. After an unsuccessful day's hunting, he returned to camp with nothing to show for his efforts but a single scrawny wallaby. Still, he made ready to cook it and share it out just the same, but his companions scorned his offering, complaining about such a meager meal. Angered by his friend's ingratitude, the thrush took the food back and told them to catch their own. Furious, he lit a sacred fire and danced around it for hours until he had raised a storm of wind and rain. He danced on, and the rain kept falling down until the whole country was awash, and his companions were all drowned. When the Tambo floods today, people say it is due to Kaboka remembering his day of rage. So I guess the only moral I can get from that story is be grateful. Like don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Don't say so. I guess if you want to look at the picture of the illustration they have, that's the one picture. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.